So my name is Anna Shedletsky. I am CEO and founder of a company called Instrumental, but I'm here really to talk about quality today, and specifically how AI is able to be applied to solve quality problems that in the past we really didn't have a lot of visibility into as an industry. Specifically focused on the consumer electronics space as a little bit about my background so you can judge how credible this talk is. I was at Apple for 6 years as a product design engineer, which is what they call mechanical engineers there. I worked on 3 iPods, and then I led system product design for the first generation Apple Watch. It was during that time that I realized there's big problems in this space that we don't have solved, and even companies like Apple slog through these problems. And the opportunity is to see, is there a way to build technology to kind of get at that stuff? So today we're going to be talking about how Motorola Mobility specifically is leveraging AI to not only get robust product quality, but actually to optimize their production processes. We're going to start though with some big picture. Which I'm sure will resonate well in this room. So manufacturing is a really big deal. It's half of the world's GDP. So it's the biggest economy. If it was an economy, it's the biggest economy in the world. And 20 cents, although some argue more, on every dollar spent in manufacturing, $40 trillion spent a year, is wasted. And so that's a huge amount of waste. And the waste comes from several kind of key vectors: scrap and rework, returns, mistakes and experiments that happen either during development or production, and then frankly underutilized human resources. So this is when your supply chain gets blocked up, you've got a line full of people and nothing to build. So there's just a lot of waste vectors that are kind of plaguing the industry and that we don't really have great solutions for. As an industry, we've been told that technology has the solution for us, and that Industry 4.0 and industrial IoT and machine learning and AI are going to be the solution to this 20 cents on the dollar problem. And we actually did this survey of consumer electronics engineering and operations leaders, so these are VPs and above, for what technologies they're investing in, and you can see it's all over the board. So the point of this slide is nobody knows what the thing is they should be investing in, because they're investing in all of it because they just have problems, they need solutions. And I think frankly, it's not about technology at all. It's about the core metrics, and I don't need to tell you all that because you're quality people. You care about the metrics. It's about yield, it's about the efficiency of the process, time to market, end user delight for the product that's being built. Does it meet expectations? And frankly, I think in the upstarts in the industry talk too much about technology and not enough about results. So today I'm going to talk about both technology and results. Leaders themselves know that the teams that they work with are kind of key to this process of leveling up and being competitive. These are the things they identify as what's keeping them up at night. They have to do with their teams. How do they compete with the rest of the space? What should they be investing in? What should they be doing? And really, they're trying to figure out how to enable their teams to solve the problem. And the problem is ultimately, it's hard to solve problems in manufacturing. It's hard to solve quality problems. It's hard to even figure out what the problems are. They want to go from open loops in the manufacturing process towards closed loops that work in existing workflows, so that you don't have to do a cultural change while doing a technology change. They want to go from an industry of single-purpose tools and systems integrators and single-purpose machines to generalized tools and many systems that are modular and can work together. They want to not have data silos. They want to be able to have the right data in front of the right people at the right time. And instead of being reactive and unpredictable in their process or when things are going to be ready to ship, they want to be proactive, and they want to have predictable risk assessment. And so these are the challenges that they're trying to solve, and they rightly have identified that their teams are the right place to focus on how to solve these problems. Oh, sorry. So we do things a little differently, and frankly, it's because we understand the team is critical. And what's really important is you can't just show up with something that's different and say, change everything you've ever done in quality or finding issues or solving problems and use this new tool. I promise it has whiz-bang technology and will make your life better. Nobody's going to use that. So we need to do things only a little differently. We need to actually be part of the workflows that engineers use today solve the problems with those workflows, just make them faster and easier. And so our philosophy has been to fit into the workflows that exist for quality folks, engineers, operations folks as well. Let the tech do the heavy lifting, create value from that, and then repeat that process. Find a new workflow, create loops. Instrumental as a company is about creating loops. I think as an industry, we have many loops in our processes, and that's really where we need to focus. And so we're going to talk about 2 loops today. The first is the product quality loop. And so some folks call this DMAIC. If you're from that school of learning, DMAIC is a process of essentially this: identify what the issues are, understand why they happened, what the root cause was, implement a corrective action, and then validate that it was corrected, and then repeat that process for the next issue. And this is a core loop for development of new product, but it can be a core loop in production if there's things that happen that you don't understand. And so this is a core loop that we can leverage AI to accelerate. And so today's systems, you can use AI to both identify issues and validate that the issues have been fixed. And we still rely on people to bring their intuition for the root cause and the corrective action of that process. But in the future, we'll be able to do all these things together. And the reason is because we can pull data sources together that humans often don't have access to, and kind of with human augmentation in the process, humans still in the loop and monitoring, we can accelerate this entire loop with AI. And so that's what I'm going to talk about today. We're going to walk through a case study of Motorola Mobility, which of course makes smartphones, and how they use AI to discover defects in their development and production process. So one of the core things that Motorola has realized is that in order to close this loop better, you need access to better data, and you need the right people to have access to that data at the right time. In the electronics manufacturing industry, everybody has an MES, but no one has access to it. It's like one guy who has access to it. Usually the data that's being stored in the MES is low resolution and low value to an engineer who could actually solve the problem. Engineers need engineering level resolution data. And so here, an easy way to get better data on your production line is to just take a picture of everything. The reason being a picture is frankly worth 1,000 words, but you don't need to know what you're looking for when you take the picture, but you can come back later and find a lot of value in it. Was there a missing screw? Was there this problem with the tape? Did it have this config of speaker in it or this other configuration? And you can see that from the photos. So really what Motorola leveraged Instrumental to do was to deploy equipment, to deploy an array of cameras to take product photos at key states of assembly. And usually we're going at places where traditional human inspectors or traditional vision systems that are based on computer vision methods don't go and don't perform well because there's too much complexity at those stages. So for example, this pre-snap view here, there's 50 different things that could go wrong in that photo, if not hundreds. And you can't use traditional computer vision systems for that because you have to program every single algorithm separately. These are places where it's very valuable if you have the data and that are not covered today on the line. So then they leveraged Instrumental to get real-time data in front of who can use it. So we have software that enables engineers, quality folks, engineering folks, operations folks to log in and see different levels of the data. So if you want to see the raw images and the photos, you can. If you want to leverage algorithms to look through all the photos for you and just get the results, you can do that too. And so here's kind of a little bit of a walkthrough of how that might work. So in this case, we have a selection of images of this Motorola phone. We have several kind of key stages of assembly for each phone, and we have multiple units for that. You can zoom in and actually see a defect. And you can actually run an algorithm, and technically it's AI, but the method is machine learning that we use to identify anomalies. And you can identify a variety of anomalies using the same algorithm. So in this case, this is a real life example where they found these vias on the board had some kind of visual signature. Now this could be, maybe this is cosmetic. Is this a functional issue? It had gone through 5 layers of human inspection at various IQC and OQC steps, and nobody had highlighted this issue. However, This cosmetic problem actually was indicative of a process problem in putting the PCB together, and these PCBs were too thick, but nobody had measured them. And so if you put a PCB that's too thick into a device that has a very strict Z-tolerant stack up, you're going to have interference, you're going to have problems that happen anywhere in this device, and it's going to be hard to pinpoint it back to like this one part that was too thick. And so by being able to find it this way, there was a visual signature of this process defect. They were able to stop this on the line. They were able to set up a test that could look for this going forward. So essentially defining a threshold that this is a problem, show me any more that look like this, and then actually have a live test that would alert them in real time if it saw anything that looked anomalous in this region. So that's kind of the opportunity of AI, is that you don't need to show it in advance what types of things could go wrong, which is kind of the limitations today of conventional vision systems. You need to predict what will go wrong, and engineers have imagination, so we can come up with a long list of things that can go wrong, but each one of those algorithms is going to be like $20,000, so it's going to be hard to get the full list covered. And so if you're looking instead for anomalies in kind of key regions, you can use a generalized tool in many places, and they can train themselves. So some other kind of examples of the types of things Motorola used the AI to do. They looked at a variety of different regions. So this is just one photo, and they're looking at like 40 regions on this. If you're going to have a human look at 40 regions, it's 2 seconds per region. That's 80 seconds of test time. And they were able to do this in 3 seconds of inference. So we talked about the PCB issue in terms of identifying this anomaly. We also have an example where David, who's a camera engineer, was using instrumental to actually review this camera trim part. And it's hard to tell from one photo that the camera trim is like maybe has an issue. You can maybe see that there's a concentricity issue with the camera itself and the trim piece. But here, he was able to, because he had multiple photos, was able to see that actually this whole part is rotating around in a way that it's not supposed to be able to do. And this was ultimately a tooling issue. Like they had tooled the part wrong, not to print, and nobody discovered that yet. And so he was able to get this learning from Chicago. The units were in China. They were the second day into an engineering build, and he was able to discover this tooling issue. He made this GIF, which I'm showing here, and he shipped that off to his tooling supplier and was like, we have this problem, you need to fix your tools. Tooling supplier doesn't speak great English, saw the pictures, was able to be like, oh yeah, we understand what's going on, we'll fix it. Like done. Issue, like total issue, and that loop completely done in several minutes. So that you can't get that when you have to physically go to the line, physically take units apart, see them, measure them. It takes a long time. So can we accelerate that process with better data? Okay, so the second loop we're going to talk about is manufacturing optimization. So this is the core loop of production. Because in production, it's less about identifying issues and more about identifying shifts. So if there's a shift in the process, if there's a shift in the parts or the people putting the parts together, that is where you get problems in production, because you've tried to eliminate all the issues in development to get through development. And so how can we use AI to identify those shifts? And so essentially the way we can do that is we're getting failure rate data off of these kind of various tests that can run both live and not live, so kind of in a reference mode. And we can actually identify the shifts proactively. So we can see shifts of rates of failure. We can see shifts in anomaly score, which could happen potentially before the failures even occur. And then we can provide an alert and a reaction to that. And so this reduces downtime for our customer because they're able to know in advance. The leader who runs many factories in the world for one of the world's largest EMS companies says that when things are on the train, stuff works really well. When the train is on the track, stuff works really well. But it's when you start to get things falling off the tracks that they fall into this bone pile, this problem, and you have lack of traceability, lack of visibility into what's happening. And so if you have a system that enables that, then you can be more proactive and prevent those problems. So kind of pull it back together, again, it's not about the technology, it's about the core metrics. So I just spent a lot of time talking about technology, so let's talk about the core metrics. So I'm not allowed to talk about specifically Motorola, but I'm allowed to show them in a slide aggregated with other data. So here's per unit savings with AI plus data combination, which is aggregated across a core group of customers. And this is actual per unit savings. And these numbers are crazy high. So if you work in the consumer electronics industry, there's 3 people over in Cupertino right now trying to get like 1/3 of a cent off the bill of materials for a smartphone. This is 79 cents. This is like orders of magnitude bigger than the types of fruit that often quality folks can get to like really sink their teeth into. Usually the optimizations are much smaller. And the reason is because it comes from several places. One is it comes from returns and rework. So if you can identify issues earlier, you don't ship them, so you don't have the returns. You don't send them down the line where they get caught by a test station and have to be reworked and opened. And in certain industries, opening a unit means it's scrap. Like you can't, there is no rework. Automotive, for example. The other place it comes from is faster issue resolution. So this has to do with how long it takes a company to ship a product into the field, get feedback that there's a problem, and then do that DMAIC process, discover the issue, root cause, corrective action validation process on field issues. And in the consumer electronics space, this usually takes about 10 weeks. Even if you're getting advanced data from the field for like returns based on serial number, you have to wait for the customers to ship those units back. You have to take them apart to figure out what's going wrong. And so one of the core areas where having the data record in advance is helpful is as soon as you get the like serial number data, you know that unit was returned and the customer bought another one, so it wasn't buyer's remorse. There's something wrong with it. You can look up that serial number in the system. If you see something defective, you can run an algorithm over everything you've ever shipped, find the units with that issue, and you can put in a corrective action in days instead of weeks. And that, depending on your volumes and how fast you're making them, can be many cents per unit of savings because you're not producing defects for weeks that you don't have to be. So the summary here is that this AI technology combined with better traceability and data generally provides like tens of cents, if not dollars per unit savings on devices that are somewhere between $300 and $2,000 in retail value in the electronic space. So it's a big range, but this is big value. And the reason is because their teams are just better empowered to get data that they can use to make decisions more quickly. So as kind of a summary on instrumental specifically, we're manufacturing an optimization system. We digitize data and we aggregate it for our customers and process it with smart algorithms like you saw that can find anomaly or find similarity. We present engineers and operations teams with actionable information that enables them to optimize both their product and their process, whether it's development or not. And this results in faster product maturity, smoother ramps, and higher yields. And all of these are things our customers have received. These are not theoretical. This is what they've gotten out of it. So I'll just pause here and thank you for coming and open to any questions you have.